Hi everyone, good afternoon. I'm Eman from the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability and SDSN Philippines. We'll begin shortly. Thank you. Hi again, everyone. We'll begin in 2 minutes. We'd like to invite everyone to move closer to the stage for a more intimate discussion with our guests. We are joined at this point by 144 people on Zoom. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. May I ask those at the back if you could kindly move forward since there are still available seats here in front, so that for any latecomers, they could just um, be seated there at the back later on. Thank you. Okay, so I guess we can start. Good afternoon once again, and welcome to this afternoon's public plenary on the evolving role of ASEAN universities in sustainability. This event is jointly organized by our very kind host, the Ateneo de Manila University, the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability, or the AIS, the John Gokongwei School of Management, or the JGSOM, Sustainable Development Solutions Network Philippines, or the SDSN, and of course, the organization of which I also represent, the Global Reporting Initiative, or the GRI. I am Danielle Coronacion. I'm the Regional Program Manager of the GRI ASEAN Regional Hub. I will be serving as your MC for this afternoon. We would like to acknowledge our participants, more than 700 registrants, joining us today both on site and online, representing more than 290 local, regional, and global organizations with sectors ranging from the academe, private sectors, governments, non-government organizations, and civil society. Thank you very much for joining us today. We would also like to acknowledge the presence of the leadership and administration as well as the faculty of our host school, Ateneo de Manila, especially present here with us,
Recording in progress.
Assistant Vice President for Social Development, Environment, and Community Engagement, Dr. Leland de la Cruz, and also Dr. Raquel Comentin Olpac, Director of the Masters in Sustainability Management Program. Welcome and good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. So for the organizers, thank you very much to the Ateneo Institute of Sustainability. They are now in its 10th year, the Ateneo de Manila's university hub to advance the sustainability agenda within the campus and beyond. AIS works together with like-minded individuals and organizations on various programs in campus sustainability, climate and disaster resilience, and the Sustainable Development Goals. The John Gokongwei School of Management of Ateneo is in the business of developing people who see themselves looking for gaps in the marketplace. The mission of JGSOM is to shape its students into business leaders who can respond to the needs of tomorrow's world. One avenue for this is through offering graduate courses such as the Masters of Science in Sustainability Management. The Global Reporting Initiative, the GRI, has developed and delivered the global best practice for sustainability reporting, the leading standards on how organizations communicate and demonstrate accountability for their impacts on the environment, economy, and people. The GRI, provider of the GRI standards, still remains as the global common language for sustainability reporting and has been the enabler for transparency and dialogue between companies and their stakeholders. This event this afternoon is also this year's public plenary of the Sustainable Development Solutions Network Philippines, whose secretariat is housed in the Ateneo. The public plenary aims to raise awareness on particular aspects of the 17 SDGs to the general public. Last year's SDSN Philippines public plenary zoomed into the progress of the Philippines in achieving the SDGs as the country stands on a crossroad, being the tail end of the pandemic, ushering a new administration and facing the midpoint of the 2030 global target. It is thus timely that in this year's plenary, the discussion will delve into the trajectory of the industry and the academic moving forward. Synergizing these efforts and leveraging the combined expertise of GRI and the Ateneo, this today is a platform to engage all stakeholders in meaningful dialogue that aims to discuss how the sustainability agenda has become a material determinant of success across industries and organizations, and the ever evolving role of ASEAN universities in this mission. We hope that this afternoon we get to discuss what sustainability is all about, what it means for the various key players in the ecosystem, its trajectory, particularly on how it cascades to the role of universities in ushering future leaders to paths relating to sustainability. So, for our agenda, we will begin with a keynote speech to be delivered by the CEO of the Global Reporting Initiative, Mr. Eelco van der Enden, to be followed by a fireside chat with Dr. Maria Assunta Cuyegkeng, as we casually refer to her, Cuyegkeng, Professor of the Educational Leadership and Management of the Gokongwei Brothers School of Education and Learning Design. She is also the Executive Director of the Lili Gokongwei Ngochwa Leadership Academy and the ASEAN University Network on Ecological Education and Culture, or the AUNEEC. Afterwards, we will have a panel discussion with invited experts and industry representatives to be moderated by yours truly. This will be a roundtable discussion to be incorporated with a Q&A portion to engage our audience, both on site and also online. And then the closing remarks will be delivered by our head of the GRI ASEAN Regional Hub, Dr. Alinette Sadique. So without further ado, I would like to welcome and begin with his keynote speech, the GRI CEO, Eelco van der Enden.
We have to click. Okay. And then I'll. Well, I feel honored and privileged to be here. Oh. You have not seen my chief of staff yet. I'm honored and privileged to be here. And the next 15 minutes, I will try to explain to all of you the importance of universities engaging in the field of sustainability education on a broad variety of topics that we all need. We all need specialists, and we need a new brand of risk managers, reporters, accountants, auditors, scientists, social science people, and engineers to enable us all to be sure that this, what I call the next industrial revolution, will take shape. Because after the technology revolution and the globalization, thanks through digitization, it is sustainability at the core of business strategies and the regulatory environment that is the next generation of business. Looking at GRI, a bit of propaganda on how popular we are behind me, I would like to take one element out of it, the 1 million downloads of our standards last year. Why? Because for the first time in our 25-year history, it was that more than 50% was not downloaded in the English language. And why is that important? Because it shows that this is a real global event. Sustainability is not woke. Sustainability is not a left hobby or gimmick. It is at the core of doing business in a modern era. And those businesses that do not live up to new and modern standards will find themselves out of business. Why? Because supply chains are changing. Demands of customers is changing. Wishes where to work and operate of people, of staff is changing. requirements by regulators are changing. And above all, the push by the investor community where to invest in or not is not changing. It has already changed. It is a pity to see, therefore, that in some jurisdictions, like, for example, the United States, sustainability is being politicized for populist gains. And why am I very strong about that? Because it shouldn't. And that's why you are all needed and why academia is needed. It is all about science, evidence, facts that lead to a better, prosperous, happy planet for all of us. So let's go to the next slide, please. So what is ESG? What are we talking about? Environmental, social, and governance. What does that mean? It basically means the environment where we operate in. And as the CEO of DHL Deutsche Post once said a year and a half ago, you cannot have a profitable company or run a profitable company in a dysfunctional society. We may all look to the E of environment. Why? Because we understand and can quantify and qualify with data environmental topics. If you put in a filter in a factory chimney, you see that you have less expulsion of, for example, carbon and greenhouse gases. You can measure that. And hey, isn't this fun? You can trade carbon rights. So you can monetize it. You can put an amount of dollars on it. And we all understand that. But when it comes to equal important topics in the social field, human rights, child labor, diversity, equal pay, safe workplace, indigenous people, and so forth. Or it comes to governance, anti-money laundering, anti-bribery. It is for some people a bit more difficult to understand. But they all have, and they all are equally important in achieving the sustainable development goals and again, making this world a happier, inclusive place for all of us. Let's go to the next slide. You may have heard that this is all a tremendous, difficult, intricate environment that we're working in. The so-called alphabet soup of sustainability standards. Let me demystify this myth, because there is no alphabet soup when it comes to sustainability reporting standards. In Europe, we have the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, which is the legal framework for the 27 EU members, one of the biggest trading blocs in the world, to make mandatory sustainability reporting for companies doing business in Europe. So not only European companies, also foreign companies with that footprint in Europe that have 40 million euros revenue, 20 million balance sheet total, and 250 employees. No, you don't have to meet all three of them to fall under scope of the CSRD. You only have to meet two. If you do, you have from financial year 2024 report mandatory sustainability reports, which are in Europe called the European Sustainability Reporting Standards. Why is that interesting? Because it's not only mandatory for those 55,000 companies in Europe that qualify, and all those non-European companies that qualify, whether they come from the Philippines, Singapore, Malaysia, USA, China, or South Africa, or wherever. You also need mandatory assurance on those reports. Mandatory first limited assurance, and that's from 2028. Reasonable assurance. We already see here a business case for academia, for accountants, for financial managers, for business managers, all around the globe, for supply chain managers, because these European rules will impact you. Then we have the others. We have there the ISSB, let's call it the second leg of the IFRS foundation besides the International Accounting Standards Board, taking care of the financial part, and I will go in a bit more details in a couple of seconds. And they have absorbed the Sustainability Accounting Standards Board, the US standard setter, for financial topics that are related to sustainability. And then you have the Securities and Exchange Committee in the US, and they always do everything themselves. But it's also related to sustainability topics, climate topics, only climate topics so far, from a financial point of view. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the world of standard setters for sustainability. Nothing more, nothing less. The rest you can call alphabet soup. Rankers, raters, framework setters, and so forth and so forth. So what is now important to understand? Next slide, please. What is the difference between them? Very simple. If you look at the ISSB and the SEC and SASB, they are about value creation on behalf of investors. So they take care of what the effect is of environmental topics on the bottom line of the reporting entity. The finance lens only, as we know from international accounting standards. Finance lens only. So what makes GRI so special? We are about impacts. What are the effects of business pursuing their strategic objectives whilst doing so on the environment and on socio-economic cohesion and topics? We are not outside in, we are inside out. We do not take care of the financial effects of the reporting entity. Is that a bad thing? No, of course not. Because the IASB and GRI, we exist 25 years, ISSB 1 year, but international accounting standards also for more than 20 years. So what did Europe do? What was so refreshing? They said we have to combine them because they are of equal importance. You cannot discuss sustainability for investors only, as if social cohesion and diversity and climate change are only and pollution are only important for how much profit or loss a company makes on behalf of investors. You cannot sell that politically. So what did Europe do? They put them together and say, guys, we call this double materiality. We cover the financial part and the impacts part. So where does GRI fit in this story? Very simple. We are the providers of the impact reporting standards on behalf of Europe. So if you report now under GRI and you have to report on your impacts in Europe, basically you're done and settled. And then we can go to the next slide. If you then see that 40% of the GRI standards are accompanied by voluntarily compliance assurance by external accountants, you see that that framework basically is already there. If you look at the ISSB, we have a memorandum of understanding with our friends of the ISSB. We take care of the impacts on behalf of their reporters, of course, on a voluntary basis. But we work very closely together, and we will shortly announce an extension of our memorandum of understanding. GRI was, and will always remain the global baseline for impact reporting. And you see that here. And let's go to the next slide. I have 3 more seconds. Next slide, please, because then it gets interesting for you. Looking at the region. It may surprise you, but in the Asian region, the uptake of our standards is among the biggest in the world. There are thousands of GRI users that use this voluntarily. The funny thing is, if you look at the country where currently the head office of GRI is located, the Netherlands, they are amongst the lowest in the world. But then, as we say, Van Gogh was also not popular in his own country. And it didn't end well with him. It will end well with us, because we may move our head office to Brussels, by the way, and we will be expanding greatly in this beautiful region. And why? Because we are a global to global organization. And why is it important? Because there where most users are, Singapore, all listed Singaporean companies report GRI. Here is like 68%. But why is that important? In entering into this field, looking at your regulators that maybe buy in to ISSB, make it mandatory, and GRI and the GRI standards in this two pillars approach, we need the people that are able to extract data. We need the system builders to extract data that have to do with this. The people that are able to report, the people that are able to assess and audit, the regulators, but also the science-based approaches around how can we cope with this topic for small, medium enterprises, because they are part of the supply chain. They need to provide information to the bigger manufacturers that need to report on this for US, European, and ISSB global standards. How do we get them on board? Social sciences, change management. It is massive. That's what I meant with this is the transformation of a global business model that is equal to the introduction of technology, that is equal to the Industrial Revolution back in the 19th century. So what I would like to stress is that universities need to take a very proactive role in this, in making sure we have the workforce of the future that can meet society demands and demands of investors that see sustainability as long-term risk management. We need to make sure that universities will be equipped with the funds needed to enhance and build bigger everything that we need to do in order to enhance the education programs in the various topics that are related to sustainability, which is basically everything, in order to make us ready for the future. So to everyone that's interested in this topic, a bright future will await you. I thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Eelco. And so, with that very compressed speech, we hope that you were able to somehow have a good introduction on how we are trying to demystify what ESG and sustainability is all about, who are the key players, and what are the roles of the GRI, the ISSB, and also further into the next session that we will be having of the program, we will explore more on the role of the universities when it comes to all of these developments. And so, with that said, I would want to welcome and also call on to our stage Dr. Assunta Cuyegkeng to move on to the next part of our program for a fireside chat with our CEO, Eelco van der Enden. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you, Danielle. And thank you very much for laying out that complex but opportunity laden landscape for the universities in building the capacity of our students for the future of sustainability and business also. Um, most sustainability leaders who are, leading their efforts in different companies nowadays never got to learn about sustainability in a formal way. Our current sustainability leaders came from different disciplines and were just thrust into their roles. Maybe could you please share with us your own personal journey into sustainability, Eelco?
Yes, and there from time to time there's a moment in your life that you are being confronted by something that makes a certain impact, that makes you realize that in fact you know nothing at all. I was head of tax, treasury, and risk management at an Anglo-Dutch company called Utronics, and we had a tremendous flooding in Italy that was basically causing havoc in our data center. And that was the moment when I understood that being risk manager is not about trying to obtain the lowest premiums for your insurance, but that in fact it is about mitigating risks. How could we mitigate these disasters in the future? And then you started to think on all those things that can be of grave danger to the going concern of your organization. We had a couple of social issues in some of the warehouses. We had issues with governance in some of the countries. And we had, of course, then already some issues with climate and flooding. And that to me was like the moment that I thought, wow, this is something big. Trying to manage and mitigate this that needs complete new understanding of what we are all facing and how to deal with it. So for me, that was in 2003, the first step into sustainability.
That's interesting. And do you see that changing in the universities in different parts of the world? What in your experience, where are the changes you've observed in the way we educate our students for their future careers?
Slowly, we see initiatives in when I look at, for example, the world of corporate finance and accountants. We slowly see people picking up to the fact that there is something like sustainability reporting. So it's getting traction. On the other hand, we also see in professional risk management that the mitigation of climate and social risks is becoming more of a science. And with that, of course, what we see when you look at carbon emissions and water pollution, that we see more fact-based science on how to remedy issues in our production processes and value chains in order to minimize environmental exposures. So you see, in fact, in all the various topics that have to do with the entire supply and the entire value chain and supply chain, that there is more attention for sustainability. Look at finance, look at green bonds and sustainable finance. It is huge, the amount of investments in Europe for sustainable finance related products was like for 500, increased 500% in the last 3 years. And that, of course, means that you need the people in finance to assess whether or not these things are green. And therefore, you need a scientist that can say, yes, this is green. Look at technology, the development of software and software tools to extracting relevant data, the engineers that are working in it. So slowly you see traction around the globe within various fields of science, where sustainability is no longer an add-on, but a real prominent place in the curriculum.
So in this picture that you are showing, it seems that mandatory or regulatory requirements do play an important role as well, so that the organizations and the universities have to respond to these requirements. In the Philippines, for example, SEC and the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas have actually been leading the change of the business landscape. What is your experience in other parts of the world? Does that really help in the commitment to sustainability by these countries?
I think yes, and we see it in many countries, by the way, in Europe, near Europe, and Africa, where mandatory sustainability reporting based on either ISSB standards, there are only two now, and the news to be developed, or impact reporting for GRI, are being closely looked at to make mandatory. And one of the reasons is not per se, of course, the overall objective is making the world a happier, healthier, more inclusive place for all.
But the other, perhaps less prosaic reasons are investors that want to see more comparable data, accounting profession that say auditing is comparing to a standard. That's basically what auditing is. So we need a standard. And if we think that it is important, then it needs to be standardized. And thirdly, and last but not least, to create a level playing field for businesses itself, which is very important. And these drivers likely will sooner being speeded up than that they will slow down. There may be some countries that do not see exactly this happening, and for political reason, as I just explained. And there are some countries, and that's also where you play a role, that say, no, we cannot do it yet at this moment in time because we don't have the capacity of all the people that are involved in this transformation. Well, that's funny. That argument was also used when we went to a global digital economy. We can't do this. There are not sufficient service providers for technology and software, blah, 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 blah. 15 years ago, now it's also a complete profession and a science with thousands, millions of people working in that industry that basically have kept up global trade and the economy in times of the pandemic when everybody was working from home. So I always make that comparison. And many moons ago in 2000, 2002, 3, 4, when I was on the other side of the fence, and we had the questions with the introduction of international accounting standards. How the hell do we cope with this? Because we need to have this data. We need to have people that understand financial reporting. We need to report blah, blah, blah. The whole charade. I now get exactly the same questions as 25 years ago, but only on a different topic.
Let me switch a bit because you have a good overview of the different reports being submitted to GRI. If you look at the nature and type of organizations that submit from Asia, no, how would you compare Asian reports or the thrusts of those reports in comparison to the maybe reports from the Western cultures?
So what you well, it's partly also a cultural thing. Some countries are very advanced, some are less advanced. I have to say that the least advanced you find in Scandinavia and the Netherlands in Europe, whereas everyone thinks always the contrary. Italy, for example, what you would not expect, 90% of all listed companies report under GRI. So what you can see is that the more a business is regulated, the more they are inclined to voluntarily use our standards. So oil and gas, upstream, downstream, mining, they are all and tobacco. They are all using our standards. Why? Because they are dependent on public goodwill and the goodwill of local governments to obtain certain licenses. Some industries are less, IT and retail. By the way, real estate is also a high user of our standards. So it is that's a bit of a mixed bag. If I look at countries, LATAM, 78% of the sustainability reports is GRI based. Brazil and Colombia, very high percentage, but the rest is lower. Africa is low. Europe is on average high. Asian is high. US is, well, we have still more than 1,000 US multinationals that also voluntarily use our standards. Will I see more? Yes, since we are at the core of the ESRS, of the European reporting framework. Of course, using GRI as a non-European company, you are prepared for European law. So that will be a natural driver towards the standards.
Yeah, but it's interesting that you say that Asian reporting is high, which really means that there is a future for our students entering the world of sustainability. So, since we're coming to a close, maybe you have any last words of advice to our students who are listening in about, if they're interested to enter this career related to sustainability? Would you have to any advice to them?
The louder some people will be propagating not to introduce this in law and regulations, the more you will know that it is absolutely sure that it will get there. And it's a very interesting focus area for your future. What I personally, and I really mean that with all of my heart, working in this position is a privilege. Why? Because you get to learn to have a holistic view on production processes and value change and the very essence of what the business is and does. You cannot assess a green bond as a finance manager if you do not understand what's lying behind it. You cannot, if you are an engineer in water pollution, not take notice of what's required in reporting because you need to be sure that you support finance or corporate reporting to get access to the data points that do matter. As HR, you cannot ignore this because you need new profiles. And by the way, you need to retain a popular employer, and younger people think this is important. uh, as uh, as an accountant, you have to understand what sustainability is and sustainability reporting. Because how can you manage and mitigate risks if you do not know what the core essence of your strategy is and how you operate as an organization, which all must be reported? Procurement, procurement. How do your suppliers work? Scope 3 reporting, which basically buys into your supply chain. New supply chain managers are needed. I can go on and on and on and on because it is real the transformation of an economic model from purely shareholder based to shareholder based plus, because your place in society will tell you a lot in the end how profitable and how successful you can be.
So thank you very much for this very interesting conversation, Eelco. I'm sure the audience learned so much from this. And so thank you again. And we turn you over to Daniel for the next part.
Thank you very much, Dr. Truth, and also Elko, for providing us an overview of what the ecosystem of sustainability currently looks like and what we are looking at in the future. So, as explained, a lot of developments are happening, and a lot of key players are also pitching in when it comes to the field and practice of sustainability. And the role of universities, as we see in the conversation, is really to be able to bridge that gap, upskilling, developing new programs, and also being able to address what the current needs of the different businesses and organizations are when it comes to the practice of sustainability. And so we will delve deeper into these topics in this conversation. So, the next part of the program, we have invited some key representatives for a panel discussion. And we will explore more on what are the synergistic opportunities when it comes to the various organizations that are involved in the ecosystem of sustainability, and also what are those practices that need upskilling and what are those issues that need to be addressed. So, joining us for a panel discussion, we have representatives from the corporate or private sector. We have our first panelist is Ms. Agnes De Jesus. She is the Chief Sustainability Officer of First Philippine Holdings. We also have Dr. Gamilang Aryo Sahadewo. He is the committee member of the ASEAN University Network for Business and Economics. And we also have Ms. Raylani Loyola, Business Development and Membership Manager of Business for Sustainable Development, or the BSD. So, to our panelists, thank you for joining us this afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Okay, so to maximize our time, I will jump right into this would be a roundtable format for our panel discussion. And then later on, we will be welcoming questions from the audience, both those who are here and also those online. I understand we have a lot of students, faculty members, and representatives from different universities in the Philippines and the ASEAN region and also beyond. So we will get into that later on. So let's jump into the experiences of our representatives for this panel. We will start with Ma'am Agnes, to be followed by our representative from the AUN, Dr. Gilang, and then Ms. Ray from the BSD. We could provide a short description of your function in the organization, and maybe I could also already throw in, what does sustainability mean for your organizations? Ms. Agnes?
Yeah, I'm the Chief Sustainability Officer of the First Philippine Holdings. We are into power, manufacturing, construction, and real estate. And sustainability, in the case of business, it's really a management approach by which the business is guided on how to create long-term value to people, planet, and business. And why do we say that we have to create value for the three? Because for us, for business to thrive, we need to look into the bigger systems where we're nested in. We need to protect the planet, we need to protect the environment. And if there is stability and a healthy planet and society, then business can flourish and we can operate for the long term.
Thank you very much, Ma'am Agnes. Dr. Gilang?
Thank you, Danielle. Hi, everyone. I'm representing the Executive Director of the ASEAN University Network for Business and Economics. So the AUNBE was established back in 1999 to facilitate collaboration among ASEAN universities to strengthen education, research, and industry relevance in business and economics. So the IONBE is currently being hosted by the Faculty of Economics and Business at Universitas Gadjah Mada in Yogyakarta, Indonesia. So sustainability is an important topic for IONBE members. Although it's quite new topic, but we've had a good start to the initiatives. So first of all, we're currently starting a collaboration with the GRI to increase the capacity of our member universities and their faculty members to incorporate sustainability reporting into their curriculum, courses, and research. We also have initiatives started by school members. So for example, at the Faculty of Economics and Business, we collaborate with the University of Agder, Norway, to establish an ASEAN Master in Sustainability Management, which is currently running the second batch. So the ASEAN Master in Sustainability Management invites students from the ASEAN countries, and so they can learn about the issues of sustainability in several topics, and then they can contribute back in the areas of sustainable development once they're back into their respective countries. We're also trying to promote the topics of sustainability into our university network events. So for example, in one of our Global Summer Week, which is going to be held in July 2023, we're going to offer a topic of ethics as well as sustainability. So there are opportunities that we can offer, to the global society as well as the ASEAN society in terms of, being at the front of research on the topics of sustainability.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gilang. And Ms. Ray?
Good afternoon, everyone. So thank you again for this opportunity. I am Rayla Di Loyola. I am from Business for Sustainable Development. So it is a nonprofit organization that guides businesses in the Philippines on their sustainability journey. More of that, we provide a platform for business community for shared knowledge and of course to advocate sustainability related programs and projects. So basically sustainability for our organization is to preserve and conserve the businesses in the Philippines to have a better future with a better impact towards their social, the environment, and of course the governance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ray. And thank you to our panelists for that introduction. And so, as we see here, we are going to come from different perspectives. And now we will look into what are the practices and what are those challenges that these organizations are trying to address in terms of sustainability management. So, well, may I go back to Ma'am Agnes? So, First Philippine Holdings is a pioneer when it comes to early adoption and appreciation on the role of sustainability in operations and corporate structure. FPH issued a conglomerate-wide sustainability report in 2016, then an integrated report in 2019. FPH subsidiary Energy Development Corporation issued a sustainability report back in 2010. And this was even before the SEC sustainability reporting guidelines were released. Can you share with us that experience?
Yeah. I think in terms of leadership, I had no problem because our chairman is really pushing sustainability, even climate change up to now. However, I think the challenge is at the time is the readiness of our employees, of our partners and customers. And therefore, what we did was, well, there were three things. First, our chairman and CEO in every opportunity discusses sustainability and climate action then and now, inside and outside. Second, we had formal orientations from local universities, and sometimes we bring in international experts like Andrew Winston from Harvard on the business case of sustainability, Rebecca Henderson on stakeholder capitalism. But I think more importantly, we had an embedding program. We tried to gamify sustainability so that, for example, programs like net zero or zero impact, less impact, including WeSpire, where we convert all of the initiatives of employees into dollars so that or pesos so that they will know the impact of what they're doing. And for those that are not really into sustainability at the very start, although our chairman is into it, we try to explain sustainability in the language of business. Like, for example, we tell them, the executives, that if we're efficient in our materials, you save money. If we have responsible products, you increase money. If we have less complaints, pollution complaints or social restiveness, we have stable cash flow. And if we are really accountable and we build our brand, then we have future money. We create future money. We have access to capital and access to talent. So that's how we explained it and how we did it.
Thank you very much, Ms. Agnes. So with that experience, as we have heard, there has been a lot of collaboration. There has been a lot of programs that have been developed to upskill and also reskill and also develop new skills in order to be at that level of where FPH is now. And so, Dr. Gilang, with the ASEAN University Network, we understand that the language of business itself has already evolved from just the bottom line to now the triple bottom line. How has the AUNBE evolved in terms of its thrust, its programs, and also its future initiatives?
Thank you, Danielle. Yes. So, if we go back to 1999, where, at the time where the AUNBE was first established, the way that we collaborate focuses more on, student mobility, faculty mobility. But as we progress and as we evolve as an organization, we believe that there are challenges that the global community as well as the ASEAN community is facing. And one of them is the issue of sustainability as well as sustainable development. So that with that in mind, we try to create discussions with the university network on the issues of sustainability and sustainable development and how we can try to be involved in those current discussions. So one example that we do is, of course, we need to start with small wins. So, for example, if you can create an event whereby faculty members from different universities can share perspectives regarding the progress of each university in terms of building curriculum, integrating the issues of sustainability into courses, as well as research. So research here is going to play an important role in the development of sustainability and then integration of reporting into GRI, because research is going to provide us with evidence on how the best way to incorporate that into the program, the best way to incorporate that into the study programs as well as the lectures themselves. And I think collaboration between universities in the ASEAN community is very important to provide us with different perspectives. So, for example, from the context of Indonesia, we can share the importance of marine resources and coastal management, for example. From the perspective of Singapore or, for example, Thailand, we can learn about urban planning as well as management. From the perspective of Vietnam, we can learn about food security and sustainable agriculture. So having these different perspectives is quite important for us to build a sustainable mindset within the university from the bottom up.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gilang. So you mentioned a lot about collaboration, and you also mentioned about the importance of research in being able to really know what are the types of programs to develop, who are the stakeholders that we have to target, and what are those topics that we really have to do more studies on. And so, Ms. Ray, the role of BSD in leading the SDSN knowledge generating institutions, advancing the SDGs in the organization, this provides for a lot of research opportunities. And so, with all these research initiatives of the SDSN and also being collaborated on and participated on by the BSD, who are the target audience? Would this be contributions to the academic sector? Would these also be contributions into the corporate sector? Who are the different stakeholders that the BSD is targeting when it comes to these collaborations?
Thank you for the question. The target audience for this research collaboration with SDSN is actually the academe. The academe in collaboration also with the corporate, because the corporate has already the proven sustainability practice, wherein the academe could adapt that and can actually make that as their foundation, so that whenever these practices are applied to in the future for the youth, it could be actually be beneficial that in advance that shared knowledge was already embedded to the professionals who are entering the workforce. So it's a collaboration of both.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ray. So all of these collaborations, we see that the outputs are, when it comes to, there are also outputs that somehow explain to us what are the new skills that have to be developed, what are the new themes and topics in sustainability, and what are those practices that contribute to sustainable development and sustainability management as a whole. I'll go back to Ms. Agnes. So with all these research developments and publications, these are, of course, source of information for the trends and developments happening in the sustainability space. Did FPH experience a restructuring? And what are those skills that were being demanded or expected in terms of this restructuring, if ever it happened, or the new roles that would contribute to the sustainability initiatives of FPH?
I think I can see two structural changes, one at the level of the board and at the level of operations or management. At the board level, of course, the fiduciary duty or the duty of board members to protect the company or the asset has been expanded to include sustainability as part of their duty. And then there is already the creation of or assignment of the Committee on Corporate Governance to have oversight on sustainability. And as far as the board is concerned, we also had changes in our mission. Now it's sustainability centric to forge collaborative pathways to a decarbonized and regenerative future. As far as management is concerned, of course, a corporate sustainability group was created and a CSO was assigned. And then a technical working group or steering committee was assigned by every president of every subsidiary to coordinate with us so that we can teach them on sustainability and monitor their performance. But I think the most important change is embedding sustainability in our strategy, in our business strategy. For example, our power segment, they are supposed to come up with low carbon electricity so that we can reduce the intensity of the grid. Real estate has to create livable and climate resilient communities. And lastly, of course, in terms of reporting, we now have third-party assurances. So the first is in terms of integrated report, an assurance that we comply with the principles and the content of an integrated report. And then lately, as we are having now, an assurance that our ESG data are accurate, looking at the sources of the data, evidences, how we analyze things, and our narratives, if they are backed up with evidence. And with this kind of changes that is across the company, it's cross-cutting because it's a change in mindset. We're looking for skills like, for example, people with holistic view, because more and more we're going to look at connectedness and complex situations. We're looking at people, both the high risk and existing, that have this critical thinking, because there are many challenges and there are many problems to solve. We're looking at people who are participatory because we're engaging more stakeholders and we need to partner with them for certain changes. And lastly, a good communicator because we are communicating complex topics. So as far as the existing crew is concerned, of course, all of those behavioral things we need to have to embed it in our subsidiaries. But on the content side, we need to look at a balance. Now they need to have new content, financial and non-financial. And also we need to look at our mission pillars. With mission pillars on governance, on environment, that will be biodiversity, circularity, energy efficiency, on social, we have human rights, uh, GED or inclusive and diverse population and indigenous people and culture. So a lot of changes happening in terms of the structure and how we do things, and in terms of the skills that we need in our company.
Thank you, Ma'am Agnes. So all of these that we're hearing, so embedding sustainability in the organization as we see is interdisciplinary. There are a lot of changes and adjustments in the human assets and also when it comes to enabling our own manpower within the organization to understand what really the purpose and priorities are in terms of meeting the needs of the organization and also being able to meet the demands of the stakeholders. So before we go to the Q&A, just one last question to Dr. Gilang. Were there some birth pains when it comes to integrating sustainability into the curricula of the various universities in the ASEAN region? What were some of these challenges and opportunities that we are seeing when it comes to developing programs aligned with sustainability management?
Yeah, I think the opportunities are quite extensive. We as universities want to be at the forefront of research, and so research topics related to the issues of sustainability, sustainable development is growing, and the number of topics will be so growing in the next few years. And what's interesting is that it's not going to be approached by one or two discipline. It's going to be interdisciplinary. So the participation of faculty members for different disciplines as well as across universities will be quite important. So I guess the next step for universities in the ASEAN network is to try to be mission driven. How can we incorporate the issues of sustainability, the issues of sustainable development within our missions, within our strategic plan? So if we have that in our mission and we have that in the strategic plan, we can always derive that. So for example, through our research, we're going to have a research roadmap whereby we provide incentives for faculty members who do research on the issues of sustainability as well as sustainability management. We're going to provide support for those who's going to collaborate with individuals from other disciplines, even outside of the academics, to do research. We also need the mission to provide us with a framework to change or to improve the curriculum, to target some specific learning outcomes as well as skills that will be relevant for sustainability, such as problem solving, critical thinking, teamwork, because we can't solve this with a single discipline. Perhaps in the future, perhaps in the near future, ASEAN universities can create a study programs that is really interdisciplinary, taking approach from different perspectives and different disciplines to create that particular learning outcomes. And lastly, I think it's all about engagements. How can we universities, as well as the ASEAN universities, can engage with the industry who are dealing with, transformation to be sustainable, to have a lens of sustainable development. I think this is where the universities have a significant role in the community to be engaged with multiple stakeholders. Thank you, Daniel.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gilang, and thank you very much to our panelists. We will now move on to accommodating some questions from our audience who are present here today, and also some questions that we are getting from our online participants. For those who would want to ask questions, I think we have 2 microphones from both sides of the venue. Please do feel free to approach.
Good afternoon. My name is Jesper Svenningsen. I'm the Executive Director of the Nordic Chamber of Commerce. We represent companies from Denmark, Finland, Norway, and Sweden. Those 4 countries are the top 4 in the world in terms of sustainability, global rank. We are all raised with the bottle almost on sustainability, right? Part of primary school. It was part of primary school all the way back 35 years ago when I was in primary school. I don't really see it. And my question to the panel is, in the Nordics, you cannot hire a talent if you do not have a sustainability profile. Here, we hear from our business leaders that it is not among the 10 asked questions. The 10 first asked questions by talent here has nothing to do with sustainability. How do we turn that around so that will be a top 5 question in 2 years or 5 years from now? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Would you want to identify who from the panelists you would want your question to be addressed? Maybe we can start with Ms. Agnes to be followed by Dr. Gilang and Mr.
Yeah. Consciousness about sustainability, yes, that's a problem. As far as our company is concerned, because our mission is to forge collaborative pathways, we realized that we're going to do it alone. So in our case, we have a program where we have networking as part of our task. So we have yearly engagements with the academe, engagement with civil society, engagement with almost all sectors. In 2022 alone, I think I engaged in 28 events and 11,600 people. And then from that, we also have a movement which we call Climate Neutrality 2050, Ako Ang Bukas movement. We joined a civil society here, apart from just mobilizing and letting people understand what sustainability, what climate change threats are. We encourage different organizations and individuals to go and calculate their own footprint. We developed a greenhouse gas calculator with the civil society, Green Convergence. We help them understand their footprint. We discuss with them the hotspots in the anatomy of their GHG, and then discuss how they can reduce it. And every 6 months, we go back to them and find out if they are progressing in their commitment. So that's the small contribution that we do to make sustainability more embraced by Filipinos.
Thank you, Ms. Agnes. Dr. Gilang?
Yes, thank you. I guess really consciousness about sustainability is very important. So I had a conversation with a colleague from Germany. He mentioned that the issue of sustainability has changed his lifestyle, from the way he chooses his shampoo, to the way that he showers, to the way that he chose public transportation, to the way that he invests. It changes his lifestyle, and I think we want to at some point in the ASEAN communities be able to change the lifestyle of our communities such that we can promote sustainability. And I think the role of universities in the ASEAN region is very important. In the context of Indonesia, for example, universities are very much important. It's an important part of the nexus that is heard by the government. So any evidence that is produced from rigorous research and rigorous evidence will be used by the government to set standards on sustainability. Were also important in instilling the young minds with issues of sustainability in business and economic education, whereby in 5-10 years time there will be leaders in their respective institution. They will be able to promote the issues of sustainability. And I think lastly, it's on the engagements as I've mentioned. We learn from different institutions from the industry about how they incorporate sustainability into their business practices. And we try to identify what are the theoretical backgrounds and then what are the empirical evidence that we can try to promote to our students and so on. So that cycle of engagements provide us and enrich us with the consciousness about sustainability. And I think this is something that we need to promote. It's a long-term project, but this is something that we want to be a part of.
Thank you, Dr. Gilang. Ms. Ray?
With our organization, the important activity for us to increase the awareness of sustainability is actually through the GRI standards training. That is one of our top training courses that we offer in our organization. We continuously provide that and offer that to young professionals and even students, because this will be the basic understanding of sustainability. It's a holistic approach. And with our members, we continue with providing trends through our monthly meetings, through our membership webinars, and that constant engagement provides that current trends in sustainability plus understanding what are their needs, what are they looking forward to, so that we could provide a service fitted for the approach that they're going to provide in their organization. So we have a lot of trainings that is mostly also focused other than GRI. We have our sustainability strategy workshops. We also have leadership workshops that will focus on building the leaders of the future, which will have a sustainability component into that. And so those are our contributions as for BST. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ray. I'll move to the next question, and I think this would be the last question that we would be able to accommodate. This is from one of our online participants, and I think I will have to address this to Doc Atshut. What could be the role of the Ateneo de Manila University in advancing or improving the reporting of the business sector in the Philippines?
Maybe I should speak also in behalf of the other universities and not just Ateneo, because I think, well, I wanted to address the question. I think that's a very important question. And first of all, I think it's a question of culture. Why? Because I think, well, I can speak for the Filipinos. We have a short-term culture, especially in terms of business. At least maybe not the bigger ones, no, the big conglomerates. But if you look at many of our SMEs, for example, they think relatively short term, and so I don't think we are at that point that most companies are looking at the triple bottom line. And that's why I think the movement of BSP and SEC are really helping us move into that landscape. Having said that, this is a wicked problem. And so while there are mandatory requirements and the culture of business has to change, the universities have a big role in preparing the future workforce, because especially the younger people, they're looking for meaningful jobs as well. I think they're more aware of the problems because it is their future. And so what I have seen is that in many occasions, it's the younger people who are educating the older generations in companies regarding the direction for sustainability. One of my former students, a recent graduate of our MS in sustainability management, was just telling me how she had to teach her seniors about sustainability because they were not very well versed in it, no? And I think that's the experience of some of our graduates. So I think the role of the universities is building the capacity of the future workforce, but also I think, as was mentioned by our panelists, having partnerships with the businesses themselves and increasing awareness. I think it's not because the business don't want to learn about it. It's just that we need to open minds. As I was just mentioning a while ago, our our traditional business culture is very averse to disclosures, for example. So you need to change that. Sustainability requires some disclosures even within the company, and that will need to change the culture of business the way we know it. And I think universities have a role to play in exposing these kinds of new trends in the global setting, even if, I'm wondering, because normally you can't be part of a bigger supply chain if you are not sustainable, but it still has not changed a lot of the mindsets, no? So it's really many people acting together, and the universities have, maybe because of their interdisciplinary perspective, they're in the best position to connect people together. Sorry for the long answer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Atshut. And as much as we would want to accommodate more questions, unfortunately, we do not have any time anymore. But we will be collecting all the questions. For those who still have questions who are here with us, we could approach Sahil, who could type in what questions you would still want to be addressed. We will be collecting all of these as well as the questions that we still have online. I understand there are a lot of questions that are coming in our Q&A, but unfortunately we would already have to wrap up. And that said, all of these conversations will continue and we hope for another opportunity. But before we end, of course, I would want to call on the head of the GRI ASEAN Regional Hub, Dr. Alinette Sadiga, to give us the closing remarks.
Maybe I need this blackboard. You can see me clearly, right? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So I remember just to share with you before I was invited in Vietnam, I wasn't given a platform. They put flour on the day. So yeah. So this is good. Okay. Thank you very much for coming to all our participants in person and online. Thank you for joining us, and also to our speakers. Thank you for the privilege of your knowledge and time. I really like having this panel discussion because every time I attend one, I feel smarter than I was yesterday. So thank you very much. I have 3 minutes, so I really don't know how to go about the closing remarks. I think I have to inspire you guys within 3 minutes. But Kat or only told me that I'll be doing the closing remarks a few minutes ago. So I'll try to come with something, come up with something inspiring and smart. Okay, so just to I think I'm already 1 minute into it. But anyway, so um, just to share with you why we're here. So this is the combination of the regional visit of GRI's CEO. He's not new anymore, not so new. He joined us last year, and we're so happy. I personally am happy that he made this trip because it just signifies and sends the message to the region that we are serious. The Global Reporting Initiative, we're not just standard setters based in Amsterdam, but we work at the regions, and GRI, while we create the reporting standards, we are a convener of all sectors, because reporting is just a stack of paper or maybe a digital report, but they're coming up with the sustainability report. There is a whole lot of transformation that organizations has to go through, and it's not just responsibility of one person. And we've heard a lot about ecosystem, sustainability ecosystem. But actually what we have now is just a patchwork of that sustainability ecosystem, because what happened was, GRI was created in 1997. Even before the SDGs, it came about because in the 80s and the 90s, a lot of you weren't born yet. There were a lot of corporate scandals, and at the time, companies are only responsible for financial reporting, and our creator said it's high time that we get corporations to be accountable for their non-financial reporting. But what happened was sustainability reporting came first before companies understood why they have to be sustainable. And throughout the last 2 decades, we have seen, if we may say, that alphabet soup of sustainability, not of reporting. And I'm happy that, in the Philippines, we are where we are, because in 2018, where we started our work, GRI's work in the region here in the Philippines, I would talk about sustainability. People would look at me as if I'm an alien. So I'm happy now that, now we're also engaging students, and you are actually the missing link to this sustainability ecosystem, because we're talking about interconnectedness, the role of different actors and stakeholders. And, our speakers and Eelco and Dokachut could not emphasize enough the importance of universities and as bastion of, learning and education and enlightenment. But right now, we only see sustainability education in in business schools, management, and the traditional courses, which are the environmental courses. But like at GRI, everything is interconnected. If you recall your lessons in physics, everything is interconnected. So the environment has a social impact, and then overarching it, you have to have good governance to ensure that you have good environmental and social programs. So that's why we see the importance of universities in creating and in supplying more sustainability professionals, not just CEOs, but we need lawyers, architects, accountants, you name it. It has to be, sustainability should be in all fields of education. Just like one of our guests here mentioned, right? I mean, it's good to hear that in other countries they start at very young age. I was talking to my friend's son who lives in the Netherlands. He's 10, and he's very engaged, in climate change. And I'm hoping that one day, when I talk to my nieces, they would also know, they would really care about the planet as well, because in the end, this is the planet that you will be inheriting. And and not to scare you, right? This is really urgent. That's why we need all of you to be part of this. And hopefully because right now we say it's a movement, but this should be a way of life. This should be a virtue. This should be your belief system. This should be a practice. It should be embedded in every aspect of human life. Because right now we are on track to exceed 1.5 degrees. It's scientifically proven. That's why we need more academics for science-based evidence. And also, scientists have said that we're already we're already amidst the sixth mass extinction. So we really need to see this as an urgent matter. So on that note, thank you very much, and I hope you spread the word, you live it, and you inspire that next person beside you. And when you go out, you start talking about the sustainability. And the next time you buy a product, right? Think about where it comes from. What are those impacts? And on that note, I'll try to say something inspiring and smart, hopefully. So, as I said, you're all important because the future belongs to the curious. And I really like this quote from Albert Einstein. You don't have to have any special talent. As he said, I have no special talent. I am only passionately curious. And on that note, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adige. And as we end our session for this afternoon, we would like to thank, of course, Eelco van der Enden, our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Atrud, for the fireside chat and for accommodating us. And of course, our panelists, Ms. Agnes de Jesus, Dr. Gumilang Arya Sahadewa and Ms. Raylani Loyola, thank you very much for sharing your expertise with us and also your time. And to the Ateneo de Manila, to the students that we have both here as our audience and also those who are with us online, thank you for spending your afternoon with us. And on that note, I would also like to give some last words. This would be for our college and high school students, as well as our other sustainability enthusiasts. SDSN would like to invite you to their online event next month. For the first time, the national SDSN networks of the Philippines, Hong Kong, and Thailand are jointly organizing a webinar entitled Incubating Sustainable Solutions. This will be happening on April 19, Wednesday. The webinar is an avenue for university and secondary school students inclined in sustainability to hear about the journey of three sustainability champions from different networks, about their innovations for sustainable development. I think we have that on screen. For registration, you could refer to the Zoom registration that in the link that is provided on screen. And also, on the next slide, I think we have the uh, QR code for the evaluation of our public plenary for this afternoon. All those who participated with us this afternoon will be receiving a certificate of participation. And to our on-site and online attendees, SDSN Philippines will be issuing an e-certificate of participation to those who will complete the evaluation form for this event. Kindly scan the QR code or go to the link as provided on screen to answer the online evaluation. The e-certificate will be sent to your emails by next week. So again, thank you very much for your participation attending this public plenary. And we hope this is not the last of the conversation that we will be having. We still look forward to more conversations and more events, and all of these jointly being attended and participated on by the GRI, by the Ateneo, and by all other organizations and institutions that we have for this afternoon. And so with that, thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye,
Bye.
everyone.
May we request our speakers to come forward? Oh, okay. So we'll just stay there and then we will have a group photo together with our audience.
And may we request the people on that side to please move to the center aisle. Thank you.